Hi, everyone. Chris Coulter from the Finish Line Group, Wealth Advisor to business owners. And today I'm honored to have Eric Gilboord, who is a mergers and acquisition specialist. A lot of my clients are likely looking to sell their business in the next 10 years, if not before. They say 75% of business owners are going to sell their business or attempt to sell their business over the next 10 years. So, and from my perspective, 90% of those business owners need some or all of the proceeds of the sale of their business to fund their retirement. So, Eric, we're probably going to ask you a bunch of questions that are burning in the mind of a lot of business owners. So thanks for joining us on this call.
I'll do the best I can.
Well, that's all we're going to ask of you, okay?
Okay.
So from a business owner's standpoint, when does someone realize that it's time to get out of their business?
You know, there's two sides of it. There's the business perspective, and then there's the personal side. Personal side is more emotional. You come to a realization that maybe the children aren't going to take over the business. You've been doing this for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you've had enough. Your spouse wants to travel and spend time together. From a business standpoint, maybe the marketplace has changed and maybe you can't keep up, or maybe you don't want to keep up with the changes. Maybe your business is plateauing and it's time to let it go. Maybe your business is just doing incredibly well and it's a really good time to get out on a high.
Okay.
Your business will tell you and your heart will tell you when it's time to go. Whether you're prepared to go or not, that's a whole other conversation.
Well, and that's been my experience in discussions where a lot of business owners I've talked to have said, "No, you know what? I'm going to bury me with my boots on." And then all of a sudden, a year or so later, I get a call going, "I want out." And obviously, there's a lot of preparation that goes into planning an exit strategy. So now a lot of business owners have asked me the question, so should I potentially look at handing my business down to the next generation or to an employee? Is this something that is a good idea?
It's a wonderful daydream. And if you'd asked me the question 40 years ago, it might have been a different answer. But today, typically the children have their own careers, their own interests. If they were interested in the business, they would have raised their hand a long time ago, and they would have been working with you in the business. As for employees, you know what? If somebody raises their hand and they have the capability to be a leader, well, there's an opportunity there to turn it over to an employee. But I have three questions that I typically ask owners about their children or family member taking over, and I guess it applies to employees too. And the first question is, are they interested? Have you sat down and had a conversation with them and find out whether they're actually truly interested, or is this, as I said, your daydream? And it's not unusual to have that conversation with an owner, and their answer is, "Well, I thought they would want to take over." Well, perhaps you thought wrong. Are they qualified? I mean, that's a really big one. I work with tons of owners, and unfortunately, the child is just, an adult child, but they're just not qualified to run a business. They might be able to do a job, they might be able to run a department, but they're not capable of running the business. And the third thing is, can they afford to buy the business from you? Because the fastest way to lose for them to lose an inheritance is if you give the business away to a child and they blow the business because they really haven't earned it. So there are many factors to take into consideration, but I wouldn't automatically choose to, quote unquote, in your mind, give the business to your children or sell the business to your children. It likely won't happen.
Well, and I think the other aspect of things, the stats are what only 30% of second generation businesses are actually succeed. So
In a good set of stats. The truth is, it's even less than that. It's significantly less than that. The chances of going to a second or third generation are very, very rare. It almost never happens.
so I guess if someone is psychologically ready to sell their business, um, is it a good idea to should I increase the value of my business? And if so, how do I go about doing that?
Increasing the value is always a good idea. And what I suggest to sellers is that you can travel down parallel paths. So you can travel down the path of selling your business, and increasing the value can only help you sell for more. You can travel down the path of not selling your business, and increasing the value can only make the business more valuable, so that someday you will potentially be able to sell it. So it's a win-win to increase the value. And I tend to point out to sellers that there's something called EBITDA, and they can have a conversation with their accountant about that. But basically, EBITDA is a calculation that typically one uses on a 4-to-1 ratio to determine the value of a company. So if the EBITDA is $500,000, then the company may possibly sell for $2 million. And what's interesting about increasing the value is that if you use that 4-time ratio and you increase the value of your company by $50,000, which really isn't a lot of money, you potentially are putting $200,000 in your jeans when you sell. And the amount of money that's left on the table by sellers is just mind-boggling, actually.
I will qualify one thing before taxes.
Yes. And that's why we're having this conversation.
So
Yes, we
I,
need people
I
like Chris to oversee what people like me have to say.
thanks for that not so prompted plug. As far as so I know you represent people who are looking to buy businesses. You also represent people who are selling selling businesses,
Mostly sellers, pretty
mostly
much.
sellers. So what are buyers looking for when it comes to buying a potential business?
Well, it's not as complicated as people might think. I mean, like anything, they're looking for a well-run business. They're looking for a profitable business. They're looking for, in some cases, it's something they're interested in. In some cases, they don't really care what it is. A proven history, a nice potential proven future, a good staff, a solid management team, all the positives that one would look for in making this kind of a purchase.
And I've heard this step before, and you'd be able to verify it. Um, Business owners have to make themselves less relevant to the business in order to optimize the value of their business. Because if a
Yeah.
company can't operate without the business owner, that's going to detract from its valuation and ultimately the chances of someone purchasing it, right?
It's not a deal breaker, but if your business is running well to the point where the owner can take off for 6 months and not be involved, then it sends a certain message to a potential buyer. Hey, that I could step in and this business can continue to move along as it has been, and I can focus on growing the business, because that's typically most of the time what a buyer is looking for, is to step in, bring their expertise, bring their resources, and help that business go from, say, 5 million to 10 million. I mean, that's really what they're looking to do. So if the owner's not necessarily needed to be involved, it's a good sign, but it's not a total deal breaker.
Right. Um, so I know you get involved upfront early on. You have a really incredible video program that helps that helps business owners prepare their business for sale, and that is it's a big differentiation. I've watched the course. It's great. I learned so much from it. Um, so once you've gone through that process, how do you know you're ready to actually sell your business? After you've gone through, kind of followed the steps
Mhm.
that you outline in your course, how do you know that the business is actually now ready?
Because if you've done all the things that we have in our system, it's called, and thank you for plugging it, it's called Sell Your Business for More, and it's a 4-step system. Basically, the first step is kind of understanding the whole marketplace and what's happening right now in terms of selling companies. The second step is really based on the owner, getting inside their head, helping them figure out a lot of personal things and emotional things and their relationship to the business and how that might transition. The third step is getting into the company and improving the company more specifically, increasing the value of the business. And the fourth step is essentially that selling process and really doing all the things that you need to do to sell. So, like anything, if you've done all the preparation and you've found yourself a really good intermediary or someone to help you sell the business, whether it's M&A or business broker or or what have you, if you followed the lessons in our program, you'll know you're ready because you've basically done all the things that are required, and you can go out and source a really strong intermediary and go out and they can find really solid buyers for your business.
So obviously it's a fee for service. It's you get involved when a company is looking or a business owner is looking to sell their business. Um,
Hopefully, at the earliest stages when they're just realizing that it's something that should be on their radar and it's something that they need to address. I mean, you asked a question earlier about when do they know. It's sometimes it's when your spouse, husband or wife, doesn't really matter. When your spouse says to you, enough already, you've been promising to sell the business because we want to spend time together, we want to travel, we want to do, all kinds of things. It's time. Age, seems to be a factor in it because, the average age of a boomer is in their mid 60s. And you get to a point where, it's time to stop working or maybe do something else, maybe a passion thing or a hobby or something. Or maybe there's a health issue, whether it's a spouse or a parent. We've had a lot of those situations where people actually have started with us on the process of, getting ready to sell and recognizing that it's typically a 3 to 5 year process. And a parent gets sick. And, so you're talking about an owner who's 50 or 60 years old, 65 years old, and a parent who's, I don't know, 90, and they have to stop what they're doing in order to, and we've had delays of periods of months or a year where somebody just couldn't address the issues of the business because they had to take care of a spouse or a partner or what have you. It's kind of like the universe tells you that it's time to get going. So the earlier you start, the earlier you engage with us, the sooner we can start getting everything in order, and so that you basically put your best foot forward. It's not unlike painting the house before you sell it. It's certainly a heck of a lot more in terms of a business, but that's generally the idea. You want to make it look the best that you can.
so I've heard numbers in the reaches of 80% of businesses that are for sale don't actually sell. So as far as utilizing a mergers and acquisitions specialist like yourself versus someone that said, you know what, I'm going to save myself a whole bunch of money and I'm going to do it myself. What's your thought process on that?
Ever
Uh,
tried to sell your own house?
yeah, well, exactly. No, I
It's
think
impossible. It's very, very difficult. I mean, if you're really, really good, or if the business is really small. I mean, if I had a dollar for every time someone said to me, "Well, I can't really engage with you because we got a call from somebody from from Vancouver, and they're in Toronto. We got a call from somebody in Vancouver 3 years ago that said they wanted to buy our business." Well, good luck. And how many times have you talked in the last 3 years? Well, we chatted a few times. And have they made you an offer? No. Have they asked you for any information? Well, a little bit here and there. And unfortunately, people are sitting there thinking they have a buyer. And if anything, you have the opposite. You have 100% non-buyer. So, if you think that life is going to be very easy and everybody's going to run up to your door and they want to buy your business, yeah, you may have a great business. And if you have a great business, then you were probably a smart enough business person to recognize you don't want to sell it on your own. There's way too many things involved in selling a business, and you want to bring in someone, an intermediary, who has a lot more familiarity with selling a company.
Well, and objectivity.
Yes.
Uh,
When it comes to price and it comes to people, I mean, we've had situations where we've said to the owner, you realize you have to let this person go. What do you mean? Well, I've gone and talked to your staff, and I understand how disruptive this, quote unquote, elephant in the room is. And frankly, I recognize that it's your son or daughter. It's not just some stranger, but they're really screwing up your chances of selling this company. And I guarantee you that when somebody comes to look at your business and they're, thinking about writing a check for, I don't know, $2-3 million for your company, if you don't think that they're going to spot the problem real quick, they will, and it will be a source of challenge for them in terms of buying your business. So you might as well just face reality. And it's one of the tougher things, tough conversations you have to have with someone, but sometimes you just have to do that. And inevitably, the other thing is that if there's a child of an owner who is disruptive, the rest of the staff know who that is. And, the rest of the staff typically suffer to a certain extent working in an environment with that kind of a person. So many reasons you probably want to get rid of them. And it's something most owners never think about.
well, it's tough to look at your child in that light, right? So just on that vein, so how do I get my management team in place and ready for a business sale? Because obviously, people being your most valuable asset, it's important to have a a team on board that is focused with a common goal. So when do you engage your management team, and how do you engage them to get ready for the sale of your business?
You do it in stages. You don't let everybody know. You share the information that you're thinking with the closest circle, typically your CFO, maybe your lawyer, your accountant, that type of thing. Maybe a senior VP of sales, something like that, and you gauge what their response is. And then as things start to progress, you can add more people because if you're going to be serious about improving the value of the company, then in all likelihood you're going to have to bring other department heads and other people into the mix. You can start off by saying we're just going to improve the value of the company. And if somebody asks the question, yeah, sure, we'll sell somewhere down the road. But the reality is, if you're, for example, boomer age, let's say you're 65 or 70 years old, and you think your staff hasn't been thinking that you're likely going to be selling the company, then you're sadly mistaken. Because, while they may not say anything to you, in all likelihood, they've been thinking about it. So it shouldn't be a surprise. But if you already have a team that works well, they're a very cohesive unit that has worked well together for a period of time, you feel them out. And, maybe there's a bio, possibility here that's entirely, something put on the table. They should let you know pretty quickly that they're not ready for something like that. And my experience is most solid management teams have been with an owner for quite a while, and they're happy for the owner. Maybe they're hoping for a bonus or something, in terms of the sale, but they'll, at the very least, management team's looking to keep their job. So, it's in their best interest to cooperate. It's in their best interest to show off the company to its best.
I guess in your line of work, you wear a few different hats. One is a business advisor, to the business owner, and then probably another one that is more of a psychotherapist or a psychologist. So what?
Well, sometimes it's a marriage counselor when the two the two owners are husband and
So,
wife.
so I'm sure, just given your kind of your history of having been in this business. So how what do you say about how do you transition from business owner to retiree or to the next stage of your life? What have you experienced with regards to that?
It's a one-on-one conversation initially, followed typically by an owner that says, "I'd like my spouse to be involved in the next conversation." And it's a very, very personal, conversation that I have one on one or one on two. And frankly, it's a different conversation with the spouse and without, and a completely different conversation when members of the team are involved. But it's you having a head to head, one on one, honest conversation with the owner and what I hope to do when I have these conversations is enlighten them as to what they have to look forward to, good and bad, in the future. So, they'll tell me everything that's going on inside their head. Usually, you ask a question, like, how can I help you? What's happening? And then the owner goes on for the next hour and spills their guts and tells you what's going on. And if you're on my side of the desk and you do your job right, then you should reassure them that, here's what's going to happen. They feel a lot better when they understand, what's ahead of them. I mean, a simple example is that you tell an owner that it's an emotional roller coaster with lots of ups and downs, and it can be a very difficult time during the selling process. And inevitably, at the end of the exercise, after they've sold, people will say to me, "Geez, Eric, thanks for that advice about the emotional roller coaster because it really was. And if you hadn't told me that, I might have gone off the rails." So, being honest with someone and filling them in on everything that's going to happen is probably the best thing that one can do, and it's the best way to get honest input from the owner.
Well, we probably can have this interview going on for hours, if not days.
Sure.
I'm sure this will be the first of a few different discussions. But Eric, if a business owner is looking to sell their business or prepare their business to be sold, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
They can go to WarrenBDC.com, or they can go to ericgilboard.com. And they can also go to sellyourbusinessformore.com. Basically, Eric Gilboard is if you're not ready to sell your business yet. Warren BDC, you are ready to sell your business. We provide very, very different kinds of services. Not everybody's ready, and some people are in great shape. So it depends. It starts usually with a conversation. I just have a conversation with someone over the phone, and we chat about what we said earlier about their life, about what they're thinking about, timing, let them know what's going to happen, and then we get that point determined. Is it best for them to take our sell your business for more system and start working on getting to understand what's going to go on and improving the value of the company, or can they jump sort of right over to Warren BDC and we can sign them up and we can start getting everything ready for taking it to market.
Well, and Eric, I really appreciate it. So if you are thinking about selling your business, the important thing to remember is I always like to say it's not what you sell your business for, it's what you keep in your pocket at the end of the day. So, conversations with you, you should also be having conversations with tax specialists who can
Mhm.
ensure and have ways for you to actually keep more of that earned money in your pocket. So, Eric, thank you on behalf of the Finish Line Group and myself. and the audience. Appreciate it, and look forward to continuing conversations.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Chris, and I look forward to our continuing relationship.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Take care.